Hello and welcome to ElseNerds, a production of Galactic Networks. I'm Gregor Sprague.
And I'm Corey Scott, waiting for the ding.
For all info on this show, including show notes and subscription links, go to ElseNerds.com. And for other Galactic Network programs, go to gncast.com.
If you haven't picked it up already, I will say some things that might be offensive to certain tame little sensitive hearts. And plus, we're going to talk about things that maybe you don't want to hear about yet. So watch before you listen, and then listen before you purge.
Yes, exactly. So, Corey, I would ask you how your week's going, but since we are recording on our old YouTube channel, I sort of know part of it with Podcast of Terror causing our Galactic Netcast to no longer be able to do live streams.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, by the way, fuck whoever filed the claim. Fuck you, you asshole.
We don't know the details as to who filed the claim exactly or why. Matt and I did a very simple review of a Christmas horror movie because it's December and we like to try to celebrate the holidays in that time of the year with talking about shitty horror films that have a holiday theme. And this movie wasn't horrible. It wasn't like we slammed it, but for some reason, even though we didn't show any footage or use any audio from the film, we got a takedown notice and it put the whole network into jeopardy. So good times. This is why and I mean, there's so many things to appreciate Google/YouTube for, and I don't want to speak ill of them just for the fact of like this is all fucked up, but this is all fucked up. And
yeah, seriously,
it because of the way things are, because of deals that happened a long time ago having to deal with fucking Viacom and stuff, and people uploading stuff to YouTube that shouldn't necessarily be uploaded to YouTube. It just became a automatic shutdown for anything that gets challenged. So it's not a we're gonna go and investigate this, and if we find something wrong, we'll have to shut you down or give you a warning, whatever. It's like, oh, somebody said something wrong about you, so goodbye. And that itself sucks. But what's worse and what I find reprehensible is that they don't even give you the information as to who, why, or anything. It's just like, you apparently maybe broke our standards, so we gotta plug you. And this has been going on for a lot of different things lately. They've been causing people to lose revenue by shutting off their ads, but not telling them that they're shutting off their ads. That happened to Casey Hansen, who is a friend of Pod as well. And I find it very frustrating that from a business side, that Google and YouTube can't get a handle on these things, that they've made this kind of like great thing, this great product, and they've encouraged creators to come to it, but then they just don't treat them like they matter at all because people are just uploading stuff to YouTube. We'll get content no matter what. But if you want quality content, which I'm not saying we are, but other people are, Homicidal Homemaker definitely is, then you have to treat the content makers with respect. And not just people like PewDiePie, who are the top of the game, but the people who are on the rise, the people who are there that are starting out. Because otherwise it just discourages them from being on your system at all. And unfortunately, I realized today as I was sending a link to something that probably shouldn't be on YouTube, but is to some friends, and that was the Star Wars Holiday Special. I sent it from Bing, and Bing sends it as Bing Video. It's still fucking YouTube. So I think you got bigger fish to fry, motherfuckers.
I need that link.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and there's reasons to be frustrated with YouTube, and there's reasons to be frustrated with people who lay false claims. You know, if it was the company who made the movie, I'm sorry that we didn't love your movie, but we didn't hate your movie either. We've definitely gone worse than other movies. And if it was just some random who came in and said, I just don't like these guys because they're fat hipster fucks, which we get, then sure, I hope you enjoy licking your balls, because that's what you should spend the rest of your life doing, licking your balls until you get tongue cancer. So good week otherwise.
Tongue cancer via testicular cancer there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, right, I didn't go anal cancer because that's harsh.
But yeah, so I mean, I'm doing, I would have to say better than that, but not great, I would say, just because, and you've probably had these customers when you worked at Geek Squad. Um, but I had, so this is a public service announcement for everyone here. If you go to buy a cell phone through AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, or Sprint here in America, and it's probably like this around the world, you have 14 days after said purchase to do an exchange or return. I had a person come in on Saturday and it was day 15 and they would not leave until I wrote down my answer. And I'm like, no, this is the best I can do. You're not going to get it written down, but they wanted an exchange. And I told them I can't do it because it is day 15 of your 2 weeks. And like, well, where does it say it on here? It says we have until January. I'm like, there are exceptions to that rule.
And does it list the exceptions on the back of the receipt or whatever? Because usually they do.
On our, and he's trying to point out at the electronics island there, which we call the boat, that there's a sign that says you have 30 days, and then but he's failing to realize that like a lot of people who misquote the Bible, like they'll pull one reference out. He's pulling John 3:16, failing that 17 will help. What does not help his case, sort of deal. Because he's going, it says right here, it says you have 30 days. And it's like, dude, read the next line. It says some exceptions apply. This is one of those exceptions. And we do have a sign by our thing that I didn't see at the time because I was busy trying, while kissing his ass, not giving him what he wanted. I made it like my Canadian ancestors before me. I was so super apologetic. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do anything. It won't let me do anything, even if I could do something, you know. And it's in the carrier, it's here in the contract. I was I tried calling my boss, and he wasn't there, so I called the dude below him. And so, long story short, he comes back in on Saturday. Almost got the police called on him. Or sorry, not Saturday, Sunday. And he's coming back on Friday, and I will be in there. Hopefully, not when he is there. And if he is, I will be hiding from him, which is so not because I'm afraid of him, but because I don't want him going, oh, you can help me out. You can help me out. I'd be like, no, you have the people helping you right now. I'm going to help the other guests who do not complain over the tiniest, I repeat, tiniest little chip on their iPhone.
Yeah. So here's the reality. This is a longtime retail employee reality is that dudes, I'm going to call you dudes. It's not a sexual term. It's not a gender term. It's just a general dudes term. When you go into a store like a Target, like a Best Buy, like a Walmart, there are different levels of people. And most of the levels that you're going to see out available to you to speak to are not going to be able to do jack shit. All right. They're going to do the best that they can, but they have criteria that they have to follow. Now, the corporation that is the entity of Target or Best Buy or Walmart, in these examples, the corporation can do any fucking thing it wants, but it has shit ton lawyers. Shit ton lawyers, it's a metric term. We don't use it in the United States, but shit ton lawyers is a thing. And shit ton lawyers fucking know exactly what they need to say, where they need to put it, how to make it all work, so that yes, when Guy out on the floor, poor Gregor out on the floor, has to say it's a 14-day return policy. Shit ton lawyers have made it very clear that is
it's not even that.
It's not even, no. So wait.
Yeah.
So don't fight with Gregor, because Gregor ain't got the power.
Mm-hmm.
The power may be changed over, because you can talk to a general manager, sometimes just a sales manager, and they might override it. A person at corporate, you call the 800 number on the back of your receipt and you talk to somebody, they may override it. Now that makes Gregor's life hard, because he's got to stand out there and stand by the fucking company rule and shit. And then somebody else above him just says, oh, fuck the company rule. And then the next time you come in, you're like, hey, Gregor, remember that time those guys told me to say, fuck the company rule? I want to do that again. Gregor's like, yeah, I still don't get to do that. You know, so just realize your battle is not going to be waged on the floor with some part-time employee. You're going to have to go up a little higher, and you're going to win a lot more times than you lose if you're fucking cool about it. Okay.
Oh, no, he was cool. I will give him that. He was
okay,
cool.
good. Yeah.
I will give him that.
Because if you freak out, people are just going to be like, we have no legal reason to help you.
Yep.
The only reason we want to help you is to keep you as a customer. And right now you're showing us that it's detrimental to keep you as a customer. So goodbye.
Yeah. So no, here's so to explain upon it a little bit more, because he was nice. But it's not a corporate thing. And again, it wasn't even, because I had my store manager, the store manager of my Target branch, helping me with this to try to defuse them. The guy said, because in there, if you read all the legalese, fine print, all that stuff, it says you might have to pay an early termination fee. These are rules set by the carriers. It's not even a Target specific rule. It is AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint. Yep. These are the three that we deal with. Have set this rule at 14 days. Why? Because usually if something goes wrong, you can come back in and say, oh, hey, this went wrong, get my exchange within the 14 days. To say that what he had, that he's wanting to exchange it for, is ridiculous is an understatement. He had I kid you not, the height right there, or the width of your thumbnail chip at the edge, and I mean the edge of his iPhone 7 that he got on Black Friday.
Now, believe me, I would not want to keep a phone with a defect if I had the ability to exchange or return the phone.
Yeah.
Even if it was my fault. I wouldn't. I would not. But you've got to know how to follow the fucking system to make this shit happen.
It gets even more ridiculous. I am not done. That was part one. That's the complaint. I'm sitting there, I'm explaining this to the guy that I was able to get a hold of, and I'm like, all right, like I don't know. I mean, it's ridiculous here. And I had the thought in the back of my head, but it never made it to the forethought of he could buy Apple Care in the Apple Store, turn around, make a claim. He said he's willing to pay the early termination fee of $300 for the device. So why not save him $100 by spending the $129 to put Apple Care on his phone, to then make a claim where, from the guy who I saw on Black Friday that works for Apple, he said it would be $35. Now, that to me sounds like a great deal at what, $160, $170, he's
not willing to pay that termination fee. He
said it. He said, I will pay.
Yeah, I know, but he's not actually willing, because what he's still saying is he's just doing whatever he can to one up you guys with the information of like, I know, I'll fuck it, you're going to do this for me. That's the level that he's at. He's like, you're going to give me what I want, and I will say every caveat that I will make, but then I'll fight you on those things if you actually try to do it that way. Just too many years of experience with this, and I feel you guys. Everybody who's still working retail, who's just starting retail, who's still stuck in retail. I mean, that's why when I go into places, stores and stuff, I don't get pissy when people like, oh, do you work here? Can you help me? You know what? I just fucking help them. I don't work there. I don't care. I will help you. And I'll fold some shirts while I'm at it too, because I'm not a prick. I have empathy. I've been in that place too long.
Yep.
But I just, especially in the holidays, like right now, it's just the fucking worst. And I get it. And I just, I feel pity, yet I also feel a sense of like missing it somewhat. Like I could. No, I do. Like I had nothing to do on Black Friday. So my wife is off at work in retail, and I'm sitting on my chair just dicking around doing much nothing. And I'm like, I could easily just go work at Black Friday. So I could just walk in and put on a smock, just somewhere and pass for it because they all work the same. All these fucking big box businesses work essentially the same. It doesn't take much to do. Hell, if I'm just pointing people in the right direction of shit, or if I'm willing to take their fucking hand and walk them to the road where something is,
Yep.
because they can't get anybody else to help them at that point in time, I will be doing the world a fucking favor.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just like, just do the world a fucking favor.
Yeah. No,
Because
dude,
you'll
okay,
not only be saving this person, but you'll be saving all the people who work in that store who don't have the time, mentality, strength, willpower, life left in them to help that person.
Yeah. Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I had the same thought yesterday when I was at work because, and again, I will remind people I sell phones for Target. You know, that is my job. I help out with the electronics because it's right there. I help out with the DVDs and the entertainment stuff because it's right there and all that. For about 3 hours yesterday, I told our security guy, I'm like, you know, I should just make myself a job in Target, like officially Target, where I get paid hourly, and I just stand by the thing that has the map of the store and just go, oh, you're here. See the dot says you are here. You want this section here. It's going to be right down there and turn. And I'm just telling them where to go. That's
Yeah.
what you just described. I'm like, do that. If it's, you know, the same amount of money that I'm making right now, you know, fuck commission, because my check on Thursday from Black Friday is going to be the most I've made in a long time, and probably will until the next Black Friday. And it's one of those, it's like, I could probably make more money if I just did 40 hours a week standing there going, hi, what can I help you find? Oh, that's going to be down E20 or whatever and all that. And then,
Yeah, it's sad because what people want and need the most from retail right now is the customer service. And the customer service is the thing that we've denigrated to being the least important job. We're saying that customer service is who we don't have to pay, and customer service is who we don't have to give hours to, and customer service is who we can replace with robots. And I don't need people out selling shit because people will just grab and go. I just need the stock out there, and I need the place reasonably clean.
Yeah.
And I need someone to ring them up. Or, oh, I don't need people to ring them up because we got self-checkout now. No, what this country wants and needs and really is falling apart from is that we've lost the ability of having service for people.
Yeah.
And that's the jobs that shouldn't go away, because eventually all the other stuff will. You know, making stuff is getting harder and harder to do because there are robots and things for it. But service, that human connection, it's like the full service gas station. If you have the means, you're always going to go to the full service gas station, because then you don't have to do anything. And someone's checking all the things that you won't want to check, or you won't think to check, because they have the experience. And like you said, they know where to look for stuff. And that's something that is gone away, except for one state, I think, where they insist that they have full service gas stations. But you don't find them anywhere else around here anymore. It's no longer the case. And I feel like that's kind of where society has started to fall apart in America.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so all that belly aching aside, because I looked at our timer and we're like, oh, hey, we've been 20 minutes and we haven't even got to the news stories yet. To say, yeah.
You definitely hear this conversation on anybody else's shows.
Yeah. Definitely be nice to the people who work retail, okay? They're there. Yeah. So anyways, on to the news. And first off, I want to say this. Hashtag fuck 2016. You are the fucking worst. You took another. Okay. I'm gonna preface this way. We started the year losing big talent. We are ending the year losing big talent. Yes, I'm calling. No. Yes, I'm calling him big talent. Because that's my fucking childhood right there, is watching his show. We don't usually cover passing aways, unless it's something, you know, someone, you know, instrumental in one of our lives, or if we think, okay, yeah, this is an instrumental person. And this actor is Alan Thicke. He passed away at the age of 69. And I will let you know there's an autoplay on that thing because why not? But Alan Thicke, known as the father on as Dr. Jason Seaver on Growing Pains, um, passed away earlier today at says about noon, where he was rushed to Providence St. Joseph's Medical Center before he died. The actor had been playing hockey with his 19-year-old son when Thicke suddenly passed away. He was born in Canada and all that stuff, and started in Growing Pains. The family friendly romp followed Thicke's character as he began to work from home when his wife reignited her career as a reporter. Um, and yeah, the after Growing Pains, he became known for his musical work and hosting experience. The actor created theme songs for Different Strokes, Wheel of Fortune, and even Growing Pains. Um, he had even done stuff, today. He was on the second episode of This Is Us. He was on Tosh.0, Celebrity Wife Swap, American Dad. Um, he was even on. He recently appeared on the reboot of Fuller House on Netflix. And yeah, I mean, it's really sad to see this guy go, because when I say, my childhood, I mean, this was my childhood when Growing Pains came out. And it was the show that I watched because my sister had the TV at the time. And, but it quickly turned into, yeah, I like the show as well. I mean, it wasn't, Spider-Man or X-Men or, like whatever, other shows were on, but yeah, or like Bobby's World. Um, yeah, kids remember Bobby's World with Howie Mandel. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is a guy that will be missed, and this is a big reason why I say he's a great that is leaving us, because I mean the dude did good stuff. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna make some cocky comment about the fact that we don't compare him to David Bowie or Prince or even Lemmy, but no, Alan Thicke is beloved, and he's a guy who's had a tremendous sense of humor about the fact that he was seen as the dad from a sitcom. I watched Growing Pains when it was on for a while. It was kind of like the lighter version of Family Ties. Like I was watching Family Ties on NBC, and then all of a sudden Growing Pains came out on ABC a couple years later, and it was still kind of that same vein. It was the three kids. It was the nuclear family sort of thing, but it was very endearing.
mhm.
And you kind of you grew up with the kids, although someone went batshit fucking crazy. But Alan Thicke, after doing that, he did a talk show for a while. He would let himself be in anything that he could be in, and would let himself make fun of himself. He had a great sense of humor about things that he was doing just in general. He's a really talented dude.
Yep.
I don't know that I've ever listened to his music other than the stuff that he wrote for shows or when he was singing on Growing Pains. I remember him and Mike doing Old Time Rock and Roll. But yeah, I mean, he's not a national treasure here. He's a Canadian national treasure, but he's still a big deal here. It's kind of too bad that his son is such a wacko. But in general, yeah, I get it. I feel like they're kind of fucking toying with us at the end of the year. Like, what else can we get in the last couple of weeks of December to really fuck it up for everybody? What else can we do? I've said this a couple of times, is like Keith Richards better watch his fucking back, because 2016 is going to kill him just to prove that it can. I just there's not a lot to say. He's fucking Alan Thicke, man.
Yeah,
He was in Robin Sparkle's video.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I was hoping that they had on Wikipedia all the lists of his um of his TV show jingles, because he did quite a bit um of TV show appearances. But I believe Beatmaster has the final word on this whole thing.
Fall 2016. Fucking bitch.
I love how when he says it, it sounds like Tom, after the white mouse is not explosive, blows up and the whole world is a fucking nuclear wasteland. And he's like,
Yeah.
"Don't you believe it?" Um, yeah.
But yeah, so I guess real quick, before we move on, different strokes, the facts of life. He also did a lot of the game shows, the Wizards of Odds, which he also sang the vocal introduction, the Joker's Wild, Celebrity Sweepstakes, the Diamond Head Game, Animal Crack Ups, which he co-wrote with his brother Todd Thicke and Gary Pickus, Blank Checks, Stumpers, Whew, and the original theme for Wheel of Fortune. He co-wrote Sarah, a solo hit for Bill Chaplin, and included on the later's Runaway album. But yeah, so I mean, he very instrumental, and he will be missed. The next bit of news is that Patrick Wilson will be playing Aquaman's evil half brother Orm in the Aquaman movie. And so Patrick Wilson was in oh gosh, what was he in? He was in something big.
He was in Watchmen.
Yeah, he was in Watchmen. He was the Night Owl in Watchmen.
Right.
And
he's been the first Insidious movie, and then the kind of spin-off movies or from the same people, the Conjuring films. He's starred in those. He had one of those CBS failed show drama things a couple years ago that everybody was like, "Oh shit, we should have kept up with that because Patrick Wilson's the fucking hot guy in Hollywood now." But it's cool to see him get back into the DC fold, and it's interesting because he was in Watchmen, which is of course the Snyder film, and now he's getting to work in Snyder's essentially new universe of DC superheroes. It's Aquaman's a weird one, man. Like,
yeah,
I want to say that I'm looking forward to it, much like I want to say that I'm looking forward to any of the DC movies at this point. I'm still trying. I'm still trying to find hope.
Mm-hmm.
But Aquaman is just like the Jason Momoa's look is so far away from Aquaman himself, from Orin, from Arthur. And I just wonder how much of that personality of who Aquaman is classically is going to make it to the film. So what is the story here? Because like I've never been a huge Aquaman fan. I liked Aquaman as a part of the Justice League or Super Friends or whatever, but
yeah,
it's not like his backstory has ever been super interesting. I think the most interesting thing about Aquaman has been continuously his relationship with Mera. Who's going to be played by Amber Heard in the film. But a lot of the other stuff is just like so, like I don't know. Like Ocean Master's okay, but Black Mana's the fucking badass. Black Mana is the coolest looking dude in all of the Legion of Supervillains. So,
I mean,
what I remember about Ocean Master was I think he killed Aquaman and Mera's son. Which is a shitty thing to do in a movie, but it sounds par for the course for some of the DC Universe stuff so far.
And I think wasn't he also responsible for, or at least I know he wasn't Throne of Atlantis, but for chopping off Aquaman's hand, or for Aquaman chopping off his own hand?
What I remember of Aquaman's hand wasn't that it was chopped off; it was that he wound up having to plunge it in a stream that was filled with piranha, and they ate it off.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. The 90s was a crazy time, a lot of heroin, but
but no, I mean it is good casting. I agree with you that the Aquaman movie is going to be weird, just because they're, I mean, we're talking about people who live underwater. And so it's like there's going to be this weird, depending on how it goes, like if they're doing if they're filming a lot of the stuff to be in Atlantis, how are they going to do the talking? How are they going to do, because these are still people who need to breathe oxygen.
Well, I
in
mean,
order
we
to
we
do.
accept people existing in space between Star
But
Wars and Guardians of the Galaxy and things. So
I'm talking about like there would have to be a way where it
water is something
clearly.
that we could all touch, and space is something that's kind of like still out of our realm. I
And
get you.
even then, I mean, like we've had people in space, and there's, there is the ways where you can fake it. I mean, hell, you can even fake it for on TV, like they had with a couple episodes ago with Pure Genius, where they had one of the actors was in space, and had to be his own nurse for his own appendectomy and all that. Um, but I mean, it's one of those things because like if you're like, wait, they're in water right now talking, because you'll see, especially Amber Heard's Mira, because she has long hair, her hair is just whoosh, going all over like it does when you're underwater. Or even Jason Momoa, because he has long hair too. He's got long hair in there, so their hair is just all flying or whatever. And it's like, wait, how are they talking, sort of deal. But whatever, they probably figured it out and we're working the script. It's just one of my little nitpicky things. I'm like, but logic doesn't say that will work.
But we were talking about superheroes, which kind of has to defy logic
Exactly.
to begin with.
That too.
But there's the how far is my buy-in? I can buy into this far, but anything past this line, no, you've lost me.
Well, anything for me, it's anything further, and I need to see behind the scenes on how you did that. Like,
right.
like it's sort of like with Suicide Squad, where they said that Margot Robbie trained to be able to hold her breath for like 10 minutes or something like that for the scene where she's underwater in the Lamborghini and Batman rescues her and all that. It's like stuff like that I like hearing about, like, oh, like they did this or they did that, like, oh, that makes sense, like spoiler alert with Walking Dead, how they cut open, how they cut the bitch in the episode on Sunday. And that stuff interests me more than sometimes than the actual program.
Yeah. Well, at least Patrick Wilson is a quality actor who can bring a lot of gravitas to a part. So
Yeah.
hopefully that helps elevate a film that sounds like it's going to have some challenges.
I will also say this: if they do it in a lot of the ways that I've seen or Ocean Master done before, where he's always been like a behind the scenes conniving type person, I think Patrick Wilson is actually a really great choice in that, because he does seem like he could do that. Like criminal
in that regard, he would be the Loki.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Which, I mean, is an interesting way to look at it, is that people would think, oh, Wonder Woman is going to be sort of the Thor genre of the DC universe because of all the magic stuff, because of the gods and everything else. But Wonder Woman is looking much closer to a Captain America style because it has to do with her fighting in a war against tanks and things. Whereas if they go the Thor route with Aquaman, it makes a certain degree of sense because it's another worldly type of feel. And then, yeah, I mean, if you have someone who's much more about political intrigue and things in a way that Loki was trying to dethrone Odin and dethrone Thor at the same time in the first movie, then maybe that's... I mean, it's still treating things like they're just rip-offs and knockoffs of the Marvel films, which is not fair because all these characters, most of them existed before the other characters did. But it's still like, yeah, I could see if that's their starting point.
Yeah. But no, so, I mean, onto the keeping in the DC universe in a way.
Or out of it.
Or out of it. Our next story is that Zack Snyder is firming up his post-production or post-Justice League plans with The Last Photograph. I picked this story mainly because The Last Photograph sounds freaking awesome. So everyone at first was thinking that what Zack Snyder was going to be doing after Justice League was immediately get into work on Justice League 2. Well, we were all wrong. He's got a little bit of time in between those, with Justice League 2 getting pushed back because of the Batman, Ben Affleck's Batman standalone movie. So he decided to work on a movie that he's been working on for a long time. Since the mid 2000s. This was after his success in 300. But the rights lapsed on this. But Snyder concocted this story with his longtime colleague Kurt Johnston, and they both wrote the script, which will be getting sprucing up. In 2011, Christian Bale and Sean Penn were attached to star, but the project is currently actorless. And the plan, sources say, is to repackage the project and approach Warner Brothers, where Zack Snyder and his producing partner / wife, Deborah Snyder, have a first look pact for their Cruel and Unusual Films banner, which aim to have of having it shot in late 2017. Now, this is what sold me. The last photograph centers on a war correspondent in Afghanistan who is the only survivor to the only one to survive an attack on a group of Americans. When a special ops soldier is searching for a family member shows up, the two team up with the correspondent, hoping to score the story of his life. That sounds really cool. That sounds right up Zack Snyder's wheelhouse with how a lot of his films look and appear, and even feel for a lot of, like, he does the dark and gritty really good and all that. And this to me seems like this could be his big, like Saving Private Ryan or something like that.
What has Zack Snyder done? I don't know. Other than his main releases, what has he done that's been original properties so far? Because he's done several comic book movies. He's done 300. He's done Watchmen. He's done Man of Steel, and then Batman v Superman. The only thing I can think of is Sucker Punch, which was they're all very bombastic, large action movies, and this sounds like there would be some large action scenes in it. It's just a matter of when I read Special Ops Soldier in search of family member shows up, the two people team up, him and the war correspondent team up. Now, in any other context, I would think, okay, the two team up and they try to figure things out, and it's a lot of intrigue and behind the scenes stuff and everything. But when I think Zack Snyder, or Michael Bay, I just think the two team up and then they beat the shit out of everybody.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, I'm curious as to what that means.
So
I haven't seen him do subtle yet.
Yeah, so here is his filmography. He started in '92 as a music video director, where he did Peter Murphy's video for You're So Close, Morrissey's video for Tomorrow, and then Soul Asylum, Someone to Shove. And then in '93 with Soul Asylum, Black Gold, Alexander O'Neill in the Middle, '94 with Diana Ferris's I Know, and then in 2009 for My Chemical Romance's Desolation Row. But you get into out of his original stuff, because he's mainly done comic book movies. Well, I say original, and this there will be questions of this, because 2004 is Dawn of the Dead he directed. The 2010 Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole, he directed. Sucker Punch he directed, and then everything else he is a comic book movie. So 300, Watchmen, Man of Steel, 300 Rise of an Empire, Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Flash, Aquaman, and then the Untitled Justice League sequel. He was either a producer, a writer, or director on all those things.
Yeah, it's just like I don't want to. I know that Snyder's style is not. It does not cater to my tastes, which is absolutely fine. And I'm not implying that he's not a skilled filmmaker or anything else like that. It's just when I hear the description of this, I'm not as excited, because Snyder hasn't done anything that makes me think that it's a, like, I don't know what this is. I really can't read that description and have any idea as to what Snyder would do with it, other than fucking Lethal Weapon on steroids in Afghanistan. But that's okay, because if that's a movie he wants to make, sure, that caters to his audience, that caters to a big audience who likes action movies anyways, and that's perfectly fine. The bigger story here is Snyder going outside of the DC Universe stuff, because things have been switched around. Now, when Justice League, the movies were announced, it was parts 1 and 2. and it was implied pretty heavily that it was going to be like two films that connected to each other, and that it was like you're going to get half the movie and then the other half of the movie. And then later on they backed off of that and like, oh no, that's not necessarily the case. And now Justice League 2 has been pushed out for this once unannounced Batman movie that Affleck is doing, and Affleck is made it pretty clear he's in no hurry to get it done. So pushing back on Justice League 2 for Affleck, who's like, well, I'll fucking get it done when it's done, man. While these other movies are still coming out, and Snyder has involvement in Wonder Woman. I know that. I assume he's got some involvement in Aquaman as well. Affleck,
producer and then writer for the story, like story
Right.
writer for Wonder Woman. Aquaman, he's a producer. Flash, he's an executive producer, much like he was with Suicide Squad.
right? Yeah, he's got production on all of these things at this point. They're all coming from his production company. But we know that there was talk after Batman v Superman that there was going to be pushback or maybe even a pushing out of Snyder from the films. Now that's never been collaborated by anybody in the companies. That's never been announced by him or anyone. So and it shouldn't be viewed as an absolute now. But it is interesting that once Affleck got involved, and once they started announcing things like, oh, Affleck wants to make Batman films, that everything else kind of started to shift. That's intriguing to me, because whether or not it's true that this is a push to get Snyder less involved in these films, films that already are challenged in other things because he didn't have involvement really to any extent with Suicide Squad, but it had its own failings because of the corporate entity trying to make the film and taking directorship away from the guy who was in charge of it. And it's funny how that's the reverse of what people feel the issues are with Batman v Superman. With Batman v Superman, they're like, I wish somebody would have come in and just fucking put the boot down on Snyder's neck and said, you motherfucker, you're going to do Batman, you're going to do Superman, you're going to do them right. And then over at Suicide Squad, it's like, God damn it, why can't corporate keep their dicks out of the mix, you know? And why'd they have to come in and screw up what could have been a good movie? We're always going to find excuses of why something doesn't work, and we may be correct, we may be way, way off, or maybe it's just the best movie that could ever fucking possibly be. It was always going to be this way. You've always been here. I don't know, but I do think that this is going to feed more into that rumor of is Snyder being politely shoved aside, like placated, like, hey, you know, you wanted to make this dream movie for a few years, yeah, we're gonna let you do that, and get the fuck away from Justice League. Get the you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I do think though it's like that. I hope, this is my hope, you know, with because you know, because we're comic book nerds, we are going to compare the two companies, that DC is realizing that the biggest successes with Marvel are not in that every movie is the same, but with different characters, you know, same style, same director, same writers, all that stuff. They realize, you know, that there's big differences with the movies.
Well, now the biggest complaints I hear from people who are not fans of the Marvel movies, or not like huge fans like I am, is that they feel that there's a sameness. They feel that they're all telling the same kind of stories, they're safe and everything else like that. I don't necessarily agree, but I can see that, if you're someone who enjoys a Marvel movie and you go to see another Marvel movie, you're gonna feel pretty good about that one too, because it's tailored for the same audience, even if they're different styles of films. Now, I do think that there are people who watch Guardians of the Galaxy that are not watching the rest of the Marvel movies and feel like this is fucking awesome, and then don't have an interest to go watch Iron Man and Thor and people fight. But I think that's a little bit different. But if you watched Doctor Strange, it feels very much akin to Iron Man when Iron Man was introduced. If you watch Ant-Man, it's very akin to those things. Other than the heist aspect, they introduce new elements. They that's have a familiarity.
There might be a familiarity to them, but still, it's a familiarity, not it's the same thing. We just swap out characters, but there are these elements that they introduce. Like, for example, like the heist element out of Ant-Man, or the political thriller out of Winter Soldier, and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you watch Captain America: The First Avenger, and then you watch Captain America: Winter Soldier, or even if you jump straight to Civil War, they look different. They feel different. The pacing is different. And now that they're two different directors, but they're also meant to be different art styles. They're different writing. It's all very different. So I think what you're more or less pointing out is that it's not a singular voice with the Marvel movies.
Exactly.
If you watch Iron Man 2 and then you see Shane Black do Iron Man 3, I love Iron Man 3, but I love all the Iron Man movies. But Iron Man 3 stands out to me because it's Shane Black doing it, and Shane Black's style is very different.
Mm-hmm.
What they didn't do is become beholden to any one creator or director. And so far, we've only had 2 directors in the current DC universe. And we're getting a third with Wonder Woman, but with Snyder's kind of style put into it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's I do love Beatmaster's comment that from his input here of he wants Berlanti to slam his 5-pound dick on WB's exec table and demand a TV to movie transition. I'll beat you to it. I will point out for you that Berlanti was the writer for the movie that we claim that does not exist, and I'm wearing their shirt, the Green Lantern movie.
The movie that almost, or basically did for a while, kill Ryan Reynolds' career, according to his own words. The other thing is that I cannot, in good conscience, say anything good about the Berlanti verse right now. Like, I am seriously ready to hose those shows off of my fucking DVR. I am out of love with the DC universe as far as television programming. And it's almost worse than the movies, because the movies end and the TV shows just go fucking on and on and on.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, on that bombshell, if you will, we will be right back. And hello, we are back into this time for Nerding Out. And I'm going to start, since I have no idea what Corey's is doing, and I'm going to talk about the first episode of the White Rabbit Project. This is the build team from Mythbusters fame, Kerry Bryan, Tori Belinci, and Grant Imahara, as they rank history's greatest inventions, heists, and more. The first episode I saw was superpowers, and I've got to say, this felt like a TV show. Like, I was waiting for commercial breaks. It felt like a TV show. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just like sitting there going, okay, so they're sticking with the same formula, sticking with what got them to the big leagues.
They're filming it like they filmed Mythbusters.
So, I mean, the difference being, obviously that there's no Jamie Hyneman and Adam Savage in here. But the other big part is that, like, so for example, the first episode was superheroes, doing superhero powers in real life. Each of the build team members, or I should say the hosts, picked 2. So for example, Grant had invisibility and freeze, like Iceman's powers. And they had these 3 criteria of how close it was to the comics, the cost, and what was the third one? And there was a third one that they graded them all on. And like ease of use, I think, was the third one. And some of these were, and it was really interesting to see because they explained the science behind a lot of it. And they used the, like 3D models when they needed to. And very much like Mythbusters, I mean, you could honestly say this is a natural progression of Mythbusters.
Which I think maybe explains why they filmed it to feel like the show. Because if you're watching reruns of Mythbusters on Netflix, it seamlessly fits in there. Plus, if you go in the opposite direction, if Netflix decides at some point, hey, we'll let who did Mythbusters? Was it A&E?
Discovery.
Discovery, yeah. So maybe we'll let Discovery play these episodes on their station, and they just plug them into like what was the Mythbusters slot or right after it, and fit the commercials in exactly in the same places. So there's no thought to how to change things up.
Yeah, I mean, but it's really cool to see. It was really cool, seeing the show. It was a pleasant surprise because I forgot that it was even, it was out there. Like, it was coming out. I thought it was coming out later, and I was looking through the new releases. I'm like, wait, White Rabbit Project's out? Oh, watching. And again, it's so enjoyable. Seeing, one of my favorite parts was Carrie was doing, she had Flight, where she talked about the jet glider things that the one guy who does all that in Dubai is making, and then the other one that she covered more of was electricity, or not electricity, mind control. And that one, it was more of the biohacker sort of thing of putting in implants, or putting on implant, or skin plant thingies all over. So wherever she moved, like if she did this, her unexpected victim, Tori, his hands would go, like it would do the same thing like that she would do. And it was funny because they're at a restaurant, and she's like, oh, will you give me more wine? And he's like, no, you're gonna make me spill. You're gonna make me, like. And it got to the point where he's throwing up like a gang sign because they got the box wet and all that with the Merlot. And she's like, he goes, will you quit making me do this? And she's like, I'm not. And it was just funny to see it. You're actually not that far off with saying that they could repackage it, because like we saw with the transition from Top Gear to the Grand Tour, where they don't censor the swearing. They still censored the swearing here. So I mean, it's one of those, like, to be noticed on, or to be conscious of who their audience is.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to alienate your existing audience. If you're coming from Mythbusters over to this, then you don't want to suddenly introduce the swears. It'd be like if hey kids, we're gonna bring Fuller House over to Netflix, and by the way, here's full frontal nudity of Uncle Jesse. First of all, that's gonna up the viewership really fast for a while, but they're all gonna freeze on that one scene. And it's just,
if you'll notice,
dick is going to be 9 inches long, and it says "Have Mercy" tattooed on the side, and have weird Elvis sideburns and shit. But that's all right.
But no, I mean, I highly recommend it. I'm still trying to get. I'm not trying, but I'm still wanting to get through. And I think now that we have that winter break where shows are taking their mid-season break, I will be able to get caught up and finished with Black Mirror. And then this is the other show that it's gonna be like, all right, let's bust this out, let's get this all going, because I want to see more, not because I have to get through it, sort of deal. But yeah, so Corey, you got a nerding out? You gonna share the surprise here?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it, because it's one of those things that you really have to experience for yourself. But I know that we've talked about it earlier, when before I took my leave of the show for a little while. And that's the finale of Westworld came out, and this season of the show, it's one of those things that I am surprised at how taken I was by it. Not immediately, and this is something to keep in mind, is that you have to allow for a slow build on certain kinds of shows. You can't expect them to wow you in the first episode, and sometimes we feel like that's the case. We're like, I'm 100% in. This is fantastic. Some things need to go at a slower pace, and some things have to build intrigue. And this show utilized intrigue and utilized mystery so perfectly, and did things that were, to me, just amazingly perfectly done. What this show told me about storytelling, I think, is what I'm going to take the most from it, because there were writers in the program. There were writers who were telling the stories in this town, and the conceit of the show is that humans go to this artificial town, this artificial Western town, which we found out over time was bigger and bigger than we ever expected or knew. And they act out stories. And when you walk in, you get to kind of choose if you're a white hat or a black hat, if you're a good guy or a bad guy. And the writers have to tell these tales. Now, they get reset essentially every day or so. But even as they're getting reset, when you're introducing things, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure where the story can go different ways depending on, you know, the flap of a butterfly wings causing a tsunami in Tokyo. It's that kind of thing. Like, how does the story change? How does everybody's backstories affect whatever the story is for the person who's involved in it? And how much deeper does everything go? It was so impeccable. And then along the way, we learn about different characters, both characters that are played in the town and real life people, and some people that aren't real life people, and a lot of other things. It's just seeing it complete, seeing the reveals. Some of the reveals I figured out ahead of time. Some of the reveals I didn't. That's always something that I admire, because it's hard to surprise me sometimes with storytelling. But it just finished off so perfectly in such a way that I can't imagine what a second season, let alone a third or fourth season, would be.
Yeah.
I almost don't want there to be a second or third season, but at the same time, I can't think that they would screw it up, because they had such a perfect plan going through this that I'm excited as much as I'm tentative.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they did, what they accomplished was, to me, it was 10 perfect hours of TV, or very close. I mean, as close as we seem to get these days. You know, I felt like this, like I felt about the second season of Fargo. I mean, this is in my top TV viewing of the year. Easily. There's just not much I think that can compare to it. And everyone's saying that it's what HBO is going to go to as Game of Thrones is starting to come to a close and everything. And I mean, it's weird, because Game of Thrones really is, sometimes it's a hard watch for me. It's kind of like Walking Dead, in that you're just kind of like waiting for your favorites to die and stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't eliminate that, but they took a lot of that away, because the characters die and you feel the loss of them dying, but then they come right back because they're artificial life. And it's amazing how they can utilize that and still affect you, but then you're not like, well, then who's going to be my new favorite tomorrow and stuff like that. It's like, oh, my favorite's back. And I'm more concerned about my favorite because now there's this deeper part of the story that wasn't even gone into. It's so smartly done, but I think for me, I enjoy it more than Game of Thrones. And there's still so much mystery that we haven't even gotten to yet, that they kind of give us little hints of here and there. It's really a wonderful, hard 10 hours to watch. Some of the interesting things I think that they did, and I wonder if this is in reaction to some of the problems that there were with Game of Thrones, not from the show itself, but from like fandom or websites, is that I noticed this kind of late, and I wonder if going back and rewatching, I'm going to be right on this or not. It seems like anytime they showed nudity, it was only shown in a non-sexual way, except for one orgy scene. There was one scene where there's an orgy going on in this town, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's where it is. But almost every time they had any of the main characters naked, which is a lot, it's not in a sexual point. It's not a raping point, although there is some of those themes in this. They utilize it to show that they aren't human, and so they don't feel the shame of it. They don't feel or react to it. It's like they're walking around naked to show that they're exposed, because they're seen as lesser things. And I thought that was so interesting, is that it takes away from the kind of like we as Americans feel like nudity should be accompanied with shame, or nudity should be accompanied with feelings of like you're doing something wrong, or it's always sexual, and that's not necessarily the case. So the way that they used it in the show stood out to me in that regard. All the performances were incredible. There were characters that Jimmy Simpson, who I've seen in a ton of things, always seems to play a weird dude.
Yeah.
He, going back to like the McPoyles on Always Sunny, he was kind of a weirdish guy on Breakout Kings, but he was really good on that show. He does so many things where he's just kind of like odd, and he's not a bad looking guy, but he just works so well in a weird character that he's been kind of associated as not being a good looking guy. In this, he gets to play the hero. He gets to play the love interest. He gets to do these things and take a very deep turn as a character, which was just so impressive. It's like, I think that he's been underestimated in the parts that he's played, and I'm excited to see him get to be viewed as such a spectacular actor that he deserves, that he's probably deserved for a long time, because I mean, he was really, me even being a fan of the guy, this was unexpected. I did not expect to see him that part. I did not expect to see that part grow the way that it did, and the way that it finished off. I thought it was just impeccable. So yeah, I don't want to spoil the show. I don't want to say anything that's going to ruin it for people who haven't seen it yet. I'm just saying, if you've held out, or if you started it and you're like, I'm not sure if this is for me, or I just need to get back to it later on, or something like that, do it, because it is good. This is a show that people should be talking about on Monday mornings in the same way they talk about Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead. This is a show that people walk into work and feel like, I have to talk to you about last night because it affected me so much. And that's exciting TV. And it's funny how much of that comes from HBO.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Well, that is going to do it for Nerding Out. We will be right back. And we are back, and it is time for our discussion point. Now, this is the main topic of the show, and at first, this was going to be a news story. But then I'm like, this is a little bit bigger. This is like something we could get a lot of stuff out of here. And then also the news of Alan Thicke passing away, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's definitely going in. But our main discussion point is the Bryan Fuller has spoken on his quote unquote bittersweet departure from the new Star Trek TV series. He is now speaking on his the exit for the upcoming series. The article notes that Fuller is a longtime fan who got his big break in Hollywood on Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager. They tell Newsweek. He stepped down from his role as showrunner because he couldn't commit to the schedule laid out by CBS. Basically, they wanted him to focus solely on Star Trek Discovery, even though he's already doing another big sci-fi television series, American Gods. And so he said, there's a quote in here that he basically was like, I'm gonna land this plane here first before taking off in another. And honestly, it is bittersweet because, this is sort of like JJ Abrams directing Star Wars. He's a fan, but the only difference being, if Star Wars was his first thing he ever directed. But I mean, it's cool. It's cool to see, he is a big Star Trek fan. He got his big break because of Star Trek. It would have been cooler to see him come back to it. And I hope there's more that we could get coming up with him, Well,
I mean, my first comparison is thinking about Drew Goddard leaving Daredevil when he did. Because you have that first season, and you have someone who was such a big part of it who had to leave before it even came out, and kept on as executive producer, and is also going to be executive producer of the Defenders. But we had a show that when we saw it, we were all blown away. We're like, holy shit, how did they just pull off a Daredevil series on Netflix seemingly out of nowhere, and then this whole world is going to be built around it, and it holds up compared to the Marvel films, which are a completely different animal, but still it's like this can easily stand behind that, and that kind of quality, in some ways better. And if I was the guy who was in charge of that, and then I couldn't stick around to see that through, to keep my name like as a primary on it, people should associate me with that show. It was my baby, and now it's not my baby anymore. That's tough, and it's not to say that what Drew Goddard left for and what he did isn't equally important or as good. It's just like at that point in time, he had to make a decision. And I think that what's going on with Fuller is sort of the same kind of thing. Is like, one, I keep hearing things like Star Trek Discovery is still not really past the is it or isn't it phase. It's like they're casting people now, but the time that it was supposed to be premiering got pushed back. Like, it got announced it's getting pushed back very close to when it was supposed to be coming out. It's still that it's winding up on TV for the premiere, but then going to a subscription service that nobody is really using that subscription service yet. And we've seen no other reasons to other than this show. So it seems like it would be very important to me as CBS to get the fucking show out that everybody is hinging the subscription service on. But in comparison, there's American Gods, which is probably not as much hanging on it, as far as it's not like a hugely well-known franchise. It's not a giant production because it's only 9 episodes or so a season, or 10 episodes a season. It's on a station that's already completely dedicated to it and has subscribers. And you're working with Neil Gaiman, which is to me a big deal, but maybe not as much to Fuller. But I look at those two situations, and where is my creative fulfillment going to come from more? And where am I going to feel like I'm not just a cog in a giant machine, like a big cog, but still a cog, that I can do the parts that I need to do to make it the best, let it go when I need to let it go to go do other things that I can find creative fulfillment from, and not feel like I could just stay or go and not matter anyways, because I'm always going to have some corporate overlord over my shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I think the big part of it comes from, is if CBS didn't do the whole, or basically say, we don't want you working on other projects, like we want this here. And again, keeping in mind that they are basically setting this up for their CBS All Access digital and Netflix around the world, so they aren't in the time crunch of, oh, we need 22 episodes out. They can go, all right, a 10 episode season, start billing CBS All Access to be like a pay TV premier destination sort of thing. And then, but so it seems like it does seem like it's more of a misstep for them than it does for him, because I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, you want to finish this, you want to get this American Gods done and looking good, because there is a lot of people that are expecting, much like there's a lot of people expecting greatness out of this new Star Trek series, because like the article says, this is the first Star Trek TV show in 12 years that we've had since the last episode of Star Trek Enterprise came to a conclusion. And it's one of these things, like, it makes a big deal. And I think if they didn't do, if NBC didn't have the whole, well, we need to put you need to either commit to us or commit to someone else, or commit to us or get the fuck out, sort of thing. I don't think there would have been as many pushbacks.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing is you got to look at Fuller's POV, which is he does weird.
Yep.
Yeah, he started out in Star Trek stuff and everything, and I'd be interested to kind of break down what episodes he did of those shows to kind of figure out what his storytelling cred is like on it. But he did Wonder Falls and Dead Like Me. He did Pushing Daisies, which is still one of those just terrific shows that unfortunately suffered from a corporate, not even a corporate thing, but like creative things that couldn't be helped with the writer's strike that happened in the midst of the second season being ready to start and then not being able to do it. And so everybody, all the goodwill and stuff that was built up there for the first season dissipated.
Yeah.
He did Hannibal, a show that was really, it was a labor of love and never got high numbers, but he stuck it out and really worked hard at it to give the best story with great actors and great character stuff in the midst of a show that just should probably have never been on NBC. But to NBC's credit, they stuck it out. They gave everything they could on it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that his creative juices seem to flow more towards American Gods than Star Trek. Star Trek may be the thing that he came back to, and it's an exciting thing to come in as the showrunner for. And it may be that he gives us a completely different version of Star Trek than we've ever seen before. I don't know if that necessarily works for Star Trek at this point. I think people need, that's what Next Generation did right, is Next Generation gave us all the feelings of classic Trek, and then we got to do Stranger Things with it with Deep Space Nine, and then Voyager was just bad.
Wait, who was the bald little girl in Deep Space Nine?
That would be the Ferengi.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's good points, and didn't realize he did Dead Like Me. I really like that. And wasn't there something to them bringing it back, or like a movie or something like that?
They've done some Dead Like Me movies. There was a Dead Like Me Life After Death movie that came out in 2009.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It does sound like it's a good choice, and I do like the fact that they said when they were casting, so they're working on casting right off the bat, because I guess they had ideas for characters, and so they wanted to get them cast, and that included an openly gay character and a female non-white lead for the show. And I'm like, yeah, whether Roddenberry wants to say that it's, or whoever from the Roddenberry family wants to say that it doesn't, well, actually they're not saying about that, they're saying about John Cho playing his Sulu being gay or whatever. But it's one of these things that like it makes sense, because it is a like Beatmaster says, look at our diversity. It's that's the one thing that I always applaud Star Trek for doing, and that was showing people that, hey, we are all, there's no white, black, like races out there. There's only one race, and that's essentially the human race. To borrow that from Battlestar Galactica as well. But so it's like I like seeing that. Oh yeah, we're gonna have this big push on diversity. It's like, yeah, of course, because I mean, if you had a whole bunch of white, good-looking people, it's like, why isn't this on the CW? Because that's where it looks like you're marketing at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, when things are said like, oh, we're gonna have a gay character, we're gonna have this character and everything else like that, all it is announcing something that doesn't need to be announced because it gets introduced in the story. It's nice because it shows an inclusiveness, and at this point in time, I think that it's important to show inclusiveness because a lot of people still don't seem to get that. Mm-hmm. But at some point, it's nice to just let yourself be surprised. You get pulled in, and you're like, oh, who's this character? I want to find out about them. I don't need to know who who they were being told to me. I want to be introduced to them and follow them on their journey and learn about them in the context of the show.
Yeah.
That's I mean, it's sort of the same feeling of people who don't want to see trailers for the new Star Wars. It's like, and I think Adam Driver said something today, like there shouldn't be a trailer for Episode 8. You know, you should just go and see it because be surprised. And I kind of agree with that. In theory,
Yeah.
I agree with it. We're just, it's funny. The problem is not the trailers themselves that they exist. The problem is what the trailers do.
Yep.
That constantly, basically, give too much of the stuff away, and we've treated consumers of films. Did I break off?
No, you go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, we've treated consumers of films and TV and things like they're stupid, like they can't not know what the story is before they get there. It's like you're gonna come in and it's a safety room here. Like you feel safe because this is exactly what we're gonna tell you, and this is how we're gonna tell you about it and everything. And it's like that's not what storytelling is. That's not exciting. That's not interesting. That's why I'm so blown away by Westworld. Is that fucking Westworld blew my mind week after week. It was just, it didn't announce me what was coming up. Yeah, they showed previews for the next week, but it wasn't even like those previews told you much. And it wasn't also like where they tried to do like, oh, we're going to outsmart you. We're going to show you a scene, but out of context, you think it's about one thing, but it's actually about something else. They didn't do any of that shit. They just showed you, hey, there's going to be another show next week. You should come fucking watch it. Yeah, I will watch it.
Westworld, folks.
So just real fast then, let's back up for a second. So we're losing Fuller. Is there anybody that you see as who's the choice to come in to take over?
Well, they already announced that that Gretchen Berg and Aaron Harberts are doing it. Are going to be taking over, his spot there as, showrunner. Which makes sense. I mean, it's not like I don't see that being one of the big reasons why there was a, like for a layback or pushback of the time, because of the fact that they already had the people there. So I mean, and I think Beats pointing out that Kurtzman still might be on the job as well. I'm not 100%, but I mean it would make sense if Kurtzman was still a part of it too. But I mean, I don't know. I think you'd be good there. And Evan's asking, what about Brandon Braga or Ronald D. Moore? Ronald D. Moore is busy doing something else too, I believe. He's quite busy himself. So,
but that's the question: is what happens when Star Trek calls? That's the thing. Is like it's not like, oh, we're running this new show, and it's developed. We're gonna do this new sitcom. It's from the people who made Cheers, and we want you to come in and help showrun it or something like that. It's like, okay, that's cool, but it's not Cheers itself. It's a property from like Lynn Charles or whatever else. Hey, fucking Star Wars movie. Do you want to direct a Star Wars movie? Shit, yes, I want to direct a Star Wars movie. Are you working on anything right now? Well, yeah, I was doing the fucking autobiography of my entire fucking life, but I can put that shit on hold because now I got the big finish. I worked in a Star Wars movie. There's some properties that it's the buy-in. It's the buy-in of whether or not you can handle it. Like, we know that Joss Whedon hit his wall with Marvel. Like, he did the Avengers movies, and he's like, that's great. Now I feel like I've done the giant-ass superhero movie that I wanted to make, and then I did another one, but I kind of want to control my own destiny again. Or your Ant-Man. Who was doing Ant-Man?
Edgar Wright.
Yeah, Edgar Wright. You're Edgar Wright, and you're like, I want to do an Ant-Man movie. I think it'd be fucking fun. I could have a great time with this. Oh, well, dude, we need to tell you how everything's going to have to work with the rest of the Marvel Universe. Well, that sucks a lot of balls. I'm going to step away now and go do something that I can control or, make people not like Scott Pilgrim, even though that movie was fucking awesome. It's like, shit, man. We fucking had an opportunity to make a Marvel film, But if you're the dude who makes the Marvel film, you have to be excited by it. And if you're not excited by it, then that fucks that shit up for everybody. So in this case, it's like, yeah, maybe I'm the guy who gets the call about Star Trek, and I'm like, I don't give a shit about Star Trek, which could also be the best thing that could happen to the show. If you're the person who doesn't give a shit about Star Trek, then you don't come in there with any of those preconceptions of like, oh, well, this is how a Vulcan's got to be, and you got to fucking Romulans say this shit, but fucking Vulcans say this shit, you know, like white people, black people, because I think it's funny. You ever notice that a Vulcan walks in with his ass like, ah, you know? But my point is, it can be good to introduce people who aren't part of that fandom already, because they're not beholden to it. At the same time, you need to have someone with at least some respect for what it is. It's a fine line to walk, and it's tough, and that's why these big franchise things are so interesting to me and such a pain in the ass to try to enjoy sometimes, because you have somebody who comes in like J.J. Abrams is like, I'm gonna fuck up Trek. I'm gonna fuck up Trek real bad and make it into action movies and stuff. But Trek needs to get fucked up because the last couple of movies that you had didn't do very well because it was so much like the shit that came before. Someone needs to inject it with new life. And so Abram comes in and injects it with new life. And then he says, hey, that worked out really good. I'm gonna make another one. And I know everybody liked Wrath of Khan, right? Y'all like Wrath of Khan? Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna fuck up Wrath of Khan. No, dude. Wrath of Khan is like on a pedestal way the fuck up here, and you ain't reaching that pedestal. We'll take your fucking Trek action movie. That's fine. That's all cool and shit. Leave Khan the fuck alone, dude. And so no one said to him, well, you should probably not do the fucking Wrath of Khan. All right, just let Khans lie where they lie. So it fucked up, and he knows it fucked up. He said it fucked up.
Yeah,
the guy admits it. He's a cool dude. I appreciate him. He comes into Star Wars. He's like, hey, I'm gonna do Star Wars, and they're like, you better not fucking use Wrath of Khan, and fucking Chaka Khan that shit first. So he's like,
Khan out of our. Keep your Hans off our cons. What?
Hans versus Cons. It's a sexy time. So he comes in and he's like, I'm gonna do Star Wars, and I'm gonna make Star Wars really respectful, like, and maybe it'll feel a lot like the Star Wars that you knew before. But again, maybe we need Star Wars to feel like it felt like before. So let's just take a break, let that shit happen, and
be cool.
Yeah, don't move too fast. You'll startle the motherfuckers, and then they'll go running around and trip over the lightsabers and shit. So he just like, he did it right. He did it respectfully, and that's the thing. You have to have someone who respects it, but then you have to know what it is before you can break it, because you have to break it in just the right places. And I think that's the question with the Star Trek thing is like, can Star Trek, the show, does it need to be beholden to Star Trek from before? I think in some ways it does, because it's our first Star Trek show in 20 years. But then it also has to learn how to be its own thing too. And that's, someone has to come in that can do both those things.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a great place to end.